Hi, today I'm going to talk about the Dewalt Tracksaw. Now, I've had this for a couple months. I haven't used it a lot, but I have used it to cut some sheet goods. And I think at this point I've established some opinions about its use that I think might benefit some people who are considering purchasing this. And I also have some opinions on accessories, what you probably want to buy and what you want to avoid at all costs. First thing I'd like to talk about is the case. So they provide this this big box here and this case holds a saw and that's it. There's no room in here for any accessories except for the manual. Came with this piece of rubber which was supposed to be attached somewhere in here. I think provides some vertical support, but it just was rolling around when I opened it up. And I think the case is as cases goes, is crappy in my opinion. It's one of these soft rubbers or soft plastics. I don't know, it's somewhere between a hard plastic and a floppy rubber. And definitely doesn't feel like something you'd want to pass on to your grandkids. I definitely prefer the old days when you would get steel cases with your tools, and that seems to be a thing of the past. But even as plastic cases go, this is cheap. So big thumbs down on the case. The saw itself, on the other hand, is really nice. I really like the build quality. Materials seem to be top-notch. All the operating controls work smoothly. It's easy to adjust. Comes with a really long cord, probably 12 to 14 feet long, so it's really easy to keep this out of the way when you're using the saw. That's nice. The dust collection port on the back works great. I'm really happy with that. It doesn't work too good if you're cutting right on the edge of sheet goods, because there's really there's nowhere to trap the dust as it's being generated, so a lot of it just goes off to the side. I think that's the same for any edge type cutting, like with a router. Dust collection doesn't really work too good for edge routing, but it works pretty good for routing on the inside of boards. So I think that's the same with this. It operates really smoothly on the track. It's easy to make adjustments to take up the play, and really happy with it. It's really easy to use it with one hand. Let's see, I'm not going to actually demonstrate this. I think there's plenty of other videos out there that show the operation of this. I like the Wood Whisperer. He had a great episode on this track saw. But I do want to talk about a few things that I haven't seen addressed, and I think are important if you're considering purchasing this. So the track, first of all, on the track, I bought both tracks. There was well, I know they sell two size tracks for sure. I don't know if they sell any longer sizes, but I bought the two. One is a 46-inch, I think, and then the other is I think a 59-inch. And they can be joined together. When you buy the track, you have to buy separately this piece, and I think they get you for something like $10 for this, but it's needed. And it goes inside the center track piece here, center part of the track, tightens down from below, and then the other track goes here. And once they're secure, it works nice. But when you get this, you have to prepare it, because these rubber pieces on the edges are wider than the final cut. And I'm sure if you've looked at track saws, you know by now how that you have to pre-cut these when you get the saw. But here's the problem that I found, and it's really not addressed in the manual. They say, okay, put this on the track and adjust the depth for a few 1/16ths of an inch below the bottom of the track, so you're not making a full depth pass on your scrap plywood when you cut this. So they say set that up and then proceed to cut it. The problem is that if I'm here at the back end of this track, where both the back and the front of the track are engaged, and I have zero play, it's beautiful. That's good, but when I were to make the cut, you can see the blade comes down here, which is 4 or 5 inches away from the back of the track. This is not going to get cut. And same with the other end of the track. So if I put this on, and if I need to actually cut the full length of the track, as soon as I start backing this off, at this point only the front part of the track is engaged, so I have slop. And now as I move it back about here where I need to be, I have an eighth of an inch play in the track, and I think it'd be hard to get a really quality cut. Now my solution, since I had both tracks, was to attach the other track, put the tracks together, and then I could obviously at that point cut the edges of the track here, and then of course as I got to that other end of the track, then I would stop, remove the back part of the track, put it in the front, and continue on, and that's how I was able to cut, to do that initial cut accurately. So I think that's kind of a fault in the setup, and if you only have one track. But I think if you were to buy this, I think most people would buy the 2 tracks, just because if you only have one track, at best you can cross-cut a piece of plywood, and if you need to rip a full sheet of plywood, you're really going to need both tracks to do that. Now in terms of quality of the cut, for ripping, this it works absolutely beautiful. Get essentially no tear out and no saw marks on the edge. I have zero problem using the cut from here on the finished product without having to do any additional cutting on the table saw. But for cross-cutting, like so, that's a different story. I've cut this plywood here, which is Luan plywood. It's the Philippine mahogany, I think it's also goes by. It's not a tight grain like maple. And my experience, I did get some tear out, not excessive, definitely usable. Maybe acceptable for most people, but when I'm cutting my sheet goods, I'm really looking for just no tear out. And to do that, I use my table saw, because I use a 80-tooth laminate type blade, and I get zero tear out or zero chip out with melamine boards, and you're not going to get that with this. So for me, I'm going to use this for doing finish ripping on the sheet goods, and then I'll probably just cut a little wide for the cross cuts and do the finished job with the table saw. But it gets worse. Now for the 90-degree cuts, this works. It works beautiful. One-hand operation, total control. But if I want to go to 45 degrees, let's say, I'm going to adjust this to a 45-degree cut. And this so happens to be when I first used this, I needed to make some 45-degree cuts. And I wasn't too happy with the results. First of all, once I've done this, the center of gravity on this motor is now not on the track. It's over on the side. The saw just naturally wants to fall off the track. So now I'm back to, it feels like the cutting of the plywood before I had the track saw, where I had a straight edge clamp to the board, and I'd have my saw and I'd have to be focusing on the saw and making sure it's not gonna move from the straight edge. I kind of feel like I'm back in those days, because now it wants to fall over. So you really have to focus on keeping it on the track. And frankly, the cuts just they were not as good. It really took a lot more effort to get that really clean edge. But the worst part of it is when you cut a 45-degree angle, where the blade exits and cuts into the wood, it's no longer right on the edge of this piece of rubber. It's actually now, it enters the wood about a 1/16 of an inch away from this rubber edge. So the rubber edge at that point is providing zero support for tear up. Now, I think when I've seen this demonstrated on plywood, I think I saw it demonstrated in rip cuts. And generally, you don't get a lot of tear out and rip cuts anyway. But for cross cutting, the tear out was horrible with this, with a 45-degree. Now, one thing you could do, which I didn't do because I didn't realize that was going to be an issue, was, let me adjust this back. So, what you could do is, with the Dewalt track, you have two edges you can work with. So you could cut one edge with the blade set to 90 degrees, and then when you cut the second edge, change it to 45 degrees, and then when you cut it, then the rubber edge is going to match perfectly for a 45-degree cut. Of course, I didn't anticipate that at the time, so when I set up the saw, I cut both edges. Now, for me, realistically, 98% of the time or more, I'm just cutting 90-degree cuts. I'm not doing 45-degree cuts. So it's really not an issue for me. I think if I were to get in the mode of having to do much of that, I might buy another track and pre-cut the edges with the blade at 45 degrees. But then again, like I said, I'm probably only going to be using the cuts when I do ripping. I'll use those edges directly in the project, but for cross-cutting I'll finish on the table saw. And I suspect for ripping operations, even at the 45-degree angle, it would probably wouldn't get a lot of tear out. Definitely very bad for cross-cuts. But other than that, I'm really happy with I'm happy with the purchase, and it sure beats using the straight edge with your non-track saw. So next, I'm going to talk about some accessories that you can buy, and whether you should buy them or not.